Good afternoon, everyone. The appointed hour has arrived. It is 1 o'clock. I'd ask everyone to come on in and take your seats. And you'll be getting copies of the tracking documents here in just a second. But as we open up, I'm going to ask Chairman Jay Roberts if he would to do an invocation for us. Amen. Thank you, Jay. Again, thank each and every one of you for being here with us, and I know we'll have some other members coming and going as we get started. I'm going to turn the chair over to Chairman Earhart, and I will go to the podium to present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes Chairman England to present the budget.
Just so everybody understands, I've only got a bottle and a half of water, so we're going to be pretty brief. Certainly not to cut off any discussion or anything, but as far as my comments and walking you through the tracking document, we will be fairly brief because there's just not a whole lot to discuss. Would like to open up by making a few comments about what we're presenting to you this afternoon. And of course, we will have time for questions once I've gone through the tracking sheet. The amended fiscal year budget for 14 has very few and nominal changes. As you know, as we left here last year and the governor signed the fiscal year 14 appropriations bill, he did no line item vetoes, and I attribute a lot of that to the working relationship that not only we have with he and his office in OPB and the House, and the working relationship with our counterparts in the Senate for trying to craft a budget that truly meets or exceeds the needs of our citizens across the state. The amended proposal that you have in front of you today is going to bump the 14 budget to about $20.2 billion, an increase of about $320 million. But all that said, it's still about a 1.5% increase from when we started the fiscal year. Of the $313.9 million in new funds in the state spending plan, $183 million of that is the midterm adjustment for K-12 education. And that $183 million is about 58.3% of the new money that's being recognized. And again, goes back to reemphasize the point that this is truly an amended budget, and what an amended budget should be is one that trues up anything left needing to be adjusted. And again, that money is, of course, to go and accurately and adequately fund our education system across the state, because as we pass the 15 budget, as we go into it in the next couple of weeks, you'll understand that we're doing that on projections. And the midterm adjustment then is done on actual student counts after the first of the school year. Further to that point, and something I think is noteworthy, is as introduced, 20 of the 50 budget units had no change. 10 agencies only had one adjustment, and that covers about 60% of the state government entities already. So you had 20 with no changes, 10 agencies with one change, 8 agencies with 2 changes, 3 agencies with 3 changes, 3 agencies with 4 changes, and 6 agencies with 5 or more changes, 2 of which are the judiciary or judicial categories. Within the 6 budget units with 5 or more of those changes, unsurprising, 2 of those are DOE and DCH. We've already noted that the lion's share of that money goes to DOE, but you would be interested probably in knowing that for the first time in recent memory anyway, that DCH is not number 2, that economic development now is the number 2 largest increase in those funds. And those funds going to One Georgia and to REBA grants and for deal closing and transactions there. So DCH now bumps down to number 3 with an increase of $47.6 million. Also, you'll notice in there's a slight adjustment as well to the Forest Land Protection Act. And what we've done is try to catch up all of that. There's some backlog that still lingers from 2011. And by doing what we've done in the amended by the end of July of this year, all forest land protection grants should be paid and the backlog should be gone. Now understand, as we come back and amended next year, there will be another adjustment there because, again, that's part of that is an estimation process as well. The House subcommittees agreed to most of the governor's recommendations, and I want to point out a few things to you. $1.25 million of that is sent to the Department of Labor to bring them on board to the PeopleSoft program with their accounting. Currently, they're using an outdated system that makes it nearly impossible for them to do their year-end reconciliation because the systems don't talk to one another. About $52,000 of that goes to the tax tribunal court that has been settling the tax-related cases, and that has been a resounding success, I think, by anyone's measure. $10 million goes to REBA, and $15 million goes to One Georgia for economic development funds as well. $26.4 million provides 100 megabytes of connectivity to every school system, rural and urban, in the state. And the governor highlighted that in his State of the State address as well. $46 million to hospitals across the state for disproportionate share. Their disproportionate share of uncovered individuals that they're having to do uncompensated care for. $12 million goes into medical home to provide a medical home for children in foster care to be managed by CMO. $158 million is set aside in SHBP for future claims and OPEB liabilities, other post-employment benefits. Something interesting to note there, SHBP pays out about $11 million a day in benefits. However, over the management of the governor and the agency heads over there, they've managed to build a surplus back in that account for the first time in several years, and something we've not seen since the beginning of the Great Recession. Due to the change in some of the federal funding for Youth Challenge Academy, you'll see also $591,250 put in to maintain those Youth Challenge Academy classes across the state, helping troubled individuals and youth. $704,900 into part-time workers for Department of Driver Services to increase to decrease the wait times in those individual centers, and to try to meet the goal of the department to get those wait times down to 30 minutes. $1.25 million for 88 additional child support workers, and that will help draw down an additional $3.7 million for personal services from the federal government. $5.4 million in Voc Rehab Services funding for the operational changes at Warm Springs. And something interesting there as well is, in the past several years, the hospital system there had been kind of I guess you'd say, a drain, for lack of a better reason, on Voc Rehab resources, and causing us to lose a 4-to-1 match there. And so with that transitioning over to Georgia Regents University to be used as a teaching hospital as well as a clinical hospital, the plan is by mid-year of this year that will be back to a break-even proposition, and we'll be better able to serve Georgians all across our state. $3.7 million for fully funding RYDCs in Rockdale, Clayton, DeKalb, Marietta, and Metro. $1.6 million for conflict cases with public defenders. Another $1.25 million for public health to consolidate their records management system so that every county can talk to each other now, finally. $3.5 million that will be included in the Secretary of State's budget for the new voter registration system, as well as the increased costs associated with it being an election year as well, and with the primary being set in this fiscal year. And last but not least, $5.7 million for an increased dual enrollment awards in DOE and those students that are going on to college or to a TCSG institution. Incredibly and worth noting is that after vetting the numbers, the House only had about 4 pages of differences, and you have those in front of you in the change and the tracking document on the differences. And one entire page of that is Chairman Powell's scribbling dealing with the judiciary. I've got to pick on him about that, but anyway. As you know, in that process, however, the governor cannot alter what the budget submission is from the judiciary, and that has to be a job that the House and Senate do. This morning, the document you have in front of you includes everything that the subcommittees voted on, and there were no changes coming out of subcommittee. And so as we go through the tracking document here in just a minute, I want to make two final points, and we'll get into that. We've done a lot of due diligence on this document, and I want to thank each and every one of you that have served on subcommittees. I want to thank our subcommittee chairs, but I also want to thank our staff because they have done yeoman's work in getting everything put together and having these documents in front of us in such a speedy and time-sensitive nature. And it's, you know, by not having a whole lot of changes to make, it makes it a lot easier to get something prepared, finished, and moved on. And now what we'll do is take and turn our efforts toward the 15 budget and make sure that we go through it. And the goal again would be that when the governor signs that document at some point in the next few months, that we don't have any red ink on it as well. I'm not making that promise, but we're going to do our best. It is a sleek amended budget and only adjusting what needs to be adjusted. And so at this point, if y'all will follow me through, we will talk about the few changes that we've initiated as a House. And after that point, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions. As you go through, there are a few things that I want to point out. Some are just very minor changes from what the governor had recommended. In Section 3, dealing with the joint offices of the General Assembly, as many of you are aware, we contracted out with GBA to manage the remaining portion of the Capitol building that the General Assembly had been managing on our own. We had a couple of employees retire that had been looking after that. And after looking at it, it just made sense that GBA is managing the biggest portion of the building. So it just made sense to transfer that responsibility over to them. So you'll see a $300,000 transfer there out of the Legislative Fiscal Office to ancillary, you know what that word means, services. Y'all, you know, redneck comes where redneck is, so some words are beyond my pronunciation. Section 5, the Court of Appeals. As I mentioned, one full page of changes. If you boil it down to just a tracking sheet of the changes, deal with the judiciary and the changes there. Many of the things that were asked for by the judiciary are things that we want to go forward and look at in 15 that didn't seem prudent to take and do in the amended budget. Two of those occur in Court of Appeals at 5.1.1 and 5.1.2. Another one deals under Judicial Council, Section 6 at 6.1.1. Small change at 6.5.1 dealing with JRS and just truing up to an actual number there. And again, dealing with 6.5.2 and 5.3, again looking at something that we want to look further at in 15. 8.2.1 under District Attorneys, under Prosecuting Attorneys Council. There's some travel money that had been asked for. Chairman Powell, again, looking at that, realized that's something we need to discuss in the 15 budget and not in the amended. Then under Superior Courts, those changes as well, dealing with State Health Benefit Plan and a couple of other operating expense items are things to be looked at a little bit later as well. Supreme Court, the Supreme Court under 10.1.1 had asked for some additional funds for document destruction. And actually the utilization, the way that they're doing document destruction doesn't require that full amount, so that fund is, or that amount has been changed from $22,840 to $12,000 there. Under Section 12 Administrative Services, last year we passed a compensation resolution in the waning days of session. That might have been day 40 as a matter of fact. And that compensation resolution is $400,000 for an individual that had been wrongly incarcerated. And so what you'll see there is taking into account the $100,000 cash payout at the beginning and then the purchase cost of the annuity, then that will pay out the remainder $300,000 over a period of time. Under Section 15, Behavioral Health, There's been a transfer of the fetal alcohol syndrome screening and treatment program from the Marcus Center over to Emory. And in those transfers and in the contract, there's some gray areas that we're looking at right now as to what money should transfer over, what can be reimbursed through Medicaid, and all of those issues. So basically what we've done at this point is put in a place marker, knowing that that's something that we may have to adjust a little bit later. May not have to, but it's there in case we need to. Moving on to Section 17, Community Health. 17.6.1 deals with the DSH, disproportionate share hospital issue that I mentioned early on. We were able to identify some additional funds, that federal matching funds that could be pulled down for DSH. So you'll see that change there. Under 17.81 and 17.86, you'll see a couple of changes in LIM, or low-income Medicaid. Basically what we did there, the House wanted to break out and show that it is a priority for the House, the Planning for Healthy Babies waiver, and just show that we are putting money there, that everyone would understand that that program is still in existence and a priority of this body. Under 17.18.1, the Georgia Drugs and Narcotics Agency, that just allows for one additional inspector position. I think they're sitting right now at 8 or 9 positions filled with 13 authorized, and just was something that seemed as a need, and so we honored part of their request as well there. Under Department of Corrections, you're going to see several adjustments there. The biggest adjustment you're going to see is under 18.2, dealing with county jail subsidy. Two items there. Chairman Powell explained this morning in subcommittee very well what's going on there. As criminal justice reform has come online, the backlog that we've been seeing for years in the past of state prisoners in county facilities has diminished greatly, to the point that at one point we were up to about $25 million a year in payments to counties for housing state prisoners beyond the 15 days that's the kick-in date for us to start paying. And so that has reduced dramatically. And so the governor recommended going in and pulling about $5 million of that out to spread through some other Department of Corrections activities. And the other thing that we've gone in and we're recommending too is, many of you have heard, and many of you have come to me, many of you have heard from your county commissioners and your sheriffs about how much we actually pay counties for housing state prisoners. Right now that rate is at $22. We're recommending raising that rate to $43 as a House initiative. The true cost is probably still somewhere $50 to $55 a day, but we felt like at this point in time, with the reduction in the need, that it would also give us a little bit of breathing room, that we could go back and correct part of that problem as well. See some minor adjustments and changes under 18.1, 18.4.1, 18.5.1, 6.1, 7.1, 9.1, 10.1, and 11.1. Again, just truing up some numbers there as well. Section 19, looking at Department of Defense. They had asked for a legal counsel position, and at this point in time, we're waiting to see if that's going to be something that's absolutely necessary. And we hope as we continue through the process, we'll know for certain, but it's also an item open for discussion in 15 as well. Chairman Powell and his subcommittee felt at this point in time it was something that we did not need to include, so you'll see that small reduction there. Under Section 23, Department of Education, let everybody get turned over to there. Several odds and ends that we've done there, and as I mentioned a minute ago, DOE is one of those areas that had multiple changes in it, but it is, of course, the biggest portion of our budget. Two items that link together, 23.1.1 and 23.1, dealing with ag ed and career technical education. We've gone in and put an additional $158,319 in both of those programs for extended day and extended year programs. And that's where the teachers are paid for the 3 months during the summer to work with students, also for afternoons, evenings, and weekends, where those teachers, whether it be ag advisors or other CTSO advisors, go out and work with those students. We know, we've seen, we understand that these career tech and ag ed programs are one of our major components of preventing dropouts, and so that we feel that is a wise investment on the state's part there. 2311-1, non-QBE grants. Devereaux Academy and Murphy Harpst Academy both made some changes. Number one, added more students, and then made some other programmatic changes. These are residential treatment centers that deal with some of our most difficult to deal with young people. And due to those changes, we were obligated to go in and make some adjustments there and what they're being reimbursed. Under 2314-1, 2315-1, and then I want you to look also at 2316-5. Those are some adjustments for 3 local school systems, and where some of the reporting was messed up and what they actually reported to the state as we built the 14 budget, and caused them some rather significant financial distress, as you can see what the amounts are. And so we've gone in and made those corrections to help them out. These are one-time expenses. And I would like to add at this point, and Chairman Dixon is I think has clarified the same point, that we're kind of drawing the line in the sand at this point. We understand that mistakes get made. We understand that with the changes that we've made, the challenges that local school systems have had over the last couple of years, that mistakes do happen. However, we cannot continue as a state to afford to go in and make up that problem or fix that problem that's been incurred on the local level. If it happens at DOE and it's a state responsibility, yes, we're going to fix that. But I guess you could kind of say that in one sense we're putting local counties on notice. Go back, do your homework, double check your work before you submit it, because we're just not going to be able to sustain doing this year after year after year. I will say on Troup County that their reporting mistake dealt with the Kia plant over there and how to recognize the additional value of that plant. And it was one of those mistakes that could have been easily made, and we've been working with them, and Representative Nix has done yeoman's work on trying to help them, and I appreciate him. And the same with Ware and Tift counties both. The representatives from those areas have done yeoman's work in bringing those problems to our attention. You'll see a small adjustment to the midterm number on 2316-1. That's just truing up for actual numbers. You'll see also a small tune-up dealing with actual numbers on SB 10 scholarships at 2316-3. And then, of course, technology and career education there at the end was that additional extended day, extended year money. Moving on to the Governor's Office, Section 26. Governor's Office of Consumer Protection, that call center that's been located there for several years is actually moving over to GTA, the Georgia Technology Authority. They will be handling that job from this point forward. They were already routing the calls anyway, so it just made sense to consolidate that there. Section 30 under Juvenile Justice, you'll see a 3% rate adjustment on out-of-home care providers. Again, that does kind of tie back into the web with RTCs as well. We're saying yes to a slight program purpose change on the Aviation Authority under Section 38. And also under Section 38, the Office of Highway Safety and Post. On Office of Highway Safety, the Governor had included in his 15 budget the funds to kick off Joshua's Law that we passed in the 2013 session, Senate Bill 231. So what we've done is gone in and added a little bit of planning money so that come July 1, as the new budget year starts, they will already have some planning in place as they go into the new school year. Under Post, 38.9.1, as you look there, the Governor recommended a $150,000 cut there to replace with other funds. The problem there is not that they don't necessarily have those additional funds, but those funds come from fines, and you don't necessarily know at this point whether they're going to have them or not. So what will be the end result of this is that money will then actually lapse into the rainy day fund at the end of the year. 43.3.1 deals with FLIPA, Forest Land Protection Act, and you'll see there the additional $531,801 that we've added in the House to bring that to that fulfillment. Section 47 on 47.6.1 under intermodal, that deals with a state-owned rail line in Screven County, and I want to thank Chairman Burns for bringing that to our attention. There had been a derailment there due to the condition of the line. We've not been spending money on that line to keep it up. Matter of fact, a lot of the last money that was spent on that line was in the 1990s or 1990. So there was derailment that kind of put the line out of commission. The DOT is going in with emergency funds to fix that and get it back up in operation. They do have a couple of new customers on that line, so you could basically file that under economic development as well if you wanted to. Section 50, dealing with bonds. The governor had asked in his book and presentation some redirections of those bonds. However, those bonds had never been issued, and so we were asked to change those to a different category and put them under new bonds, basically redirecting the purpose of the amount, but since they have not been issued, they still have to be categorized as new bonds at this point in time. So we've made that adjustment. No changing in any amounts or anything dealing with that. So it's just basically a move of categories there. That wraps up the changes that we've made from the governor's recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and I'll be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have several questions. First is from Chairman Jay Roberts.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and great job. Y'all did a great job. One quick on the county jail subsidy. We're going from 22 to 43. That's wonderful. But what is the total cost? Do you know?
No, I don't really know because there's no way to put a full finger on that until the end of the year to know how many prisoners have actually been there. It could use up the entire $4 million, but it's doubtful, very doubtful actually, that they would even get close to that. But again, if those funds are not used, that's more to be allowed to roll over into RSR if we need to at the end of the year.
One more
yes,
question, Mr. Chairman. On the Joshua's Law part here, when we passed that bill, I mean, the intent behind it was that every school system in the state would end up with a simulator. Will this allow for that to happen?
The $30,000 is just initial training or initial startup. The money that's put in the 15 budget, I think it's $150 some odd $1,000 in the 15 budget, gets that process started. I think it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be a few years before it's fully up and running, but you got to start somewhere. And of course, we're relying on some of the super speeder fines to help pay for that as well.
And I can promise you the message to Tiff County, if they screw up again, will be delivered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next is from Representative Gardner.
She waves.
Your microphone is on. She waved. Sorry, I didn't see her wave. Next is Chairman Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman England, on Superior Courts, on lines 911 and lines 921 and 931, do we not have a obligation to fund the state health benefit plan?
No, last year all state agencies were asked to eat a 1% increase in state health benefit plan costs, and all agencies did, including the judiciary, but what they've done here is just come back and ask for that 1%.
Okay. So they're okay to July 1st then? Okay, thank you.
Next question is from Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman England, you mentioned Forest Land Protection Act, FLIPA. What was that reference in the tracking document? Can you?
Your number goes to, hold on just a second. It's going to be section 4131.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next question was Representative Pruitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On, I guess it's line 50.1.2, I see that there's a redirect here of some bond money going to the Central State Hospital. Is that correct?
On 50.1.2, that deals with, that one actually deals with university system buildings. I'm showing 50.1.1 deals with behavioral health.
Okay, what I'm seeing is that it looks to me like the money is going to activities at the Central State Hospital, and that's going to a different, being moved. I'm not sure which one of these. You said some of these bonds haven't been issued.
It's just to a different building. We've authorized the bond to be sold, but we haven't sold the bond, so it has to be redirected in that case, and that's what this is. You know, many of those buildings we are closing out, so there's no reason to go in and spend those funds on those buildings, but the buildings we're going to keep are in need of some renovation, and that's what that's doing. It's directing that money toward a building that needs renovation.
Okay, so it's not a overrun from that $5 million or whatever we put in last year?
No.
Okay,
No.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Mr. Chairman, you have no further questions. You must have done an unbelievably good job.
That or boredom to death, I'm not sure. That happens.
One of the two. Hey, there's been a move due past Chairman Roberts, second from Representative Chairman Chokas. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Mr. Chairman, the budget supplemental 2014 has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would remind everybody that's on rules, please hang tight because the Rules Committee will be meeting here shortly. Thank you.